Cool.
Yeah, you look great. Headphones on, perfect. Okay. So now you have a baby, which you didn't last time we spoke. How is that?
Oh my God, it's amazing. It's kind of weird because like the first 3, 4 months of having a baby, it's boring. There's literally nothing a father can do. Like you probably seriously, like I feel like I'm like most fathers that I talk to prior to having a baby, they always tell you like, oh, once you hold your baby, it's gonna change your life. You'll be so connected to this guy. But like the first 3 months, I had no connection to him. It was like the weirdest thing ever. But as he got older and as he started like recognizing that like I was a person and I can help him, it actually started making the
Yeah.
relationship a little bit better. And now it's amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. How's Emily doing?
She's actually really good. She's
Yeah.
just doing that mom life, I guess. But overall, she's pretty
Does
good.
she like enjoy it? Does she enjoy it?
Yeah, I mean, like she enjoyed it from the like literally through pregnancy, from the moment he got here, and even up to now. Like, for her, it was like that instant attachment. Like, you know what I mean? Like having a baby
Yeah.
in her belly and all that stuff. It was an instant attachment for her. So, um, she loved every second of it. Even the miserable parts where she was like nauseous and throwing up and stuff, she enjoyed the entire process.
Did that make you kind of jealous that she had this like instant connection and you were sort of waiting around?
A little bit it did. I mean, when he first came home, it was like he would cry, I would hold him, and he would continue to cry. He would cry, she'll hold him, and he would immediately stop. And I'm like, dude, like I'm a person too. How come you don't like me? We should love your mother. But it's totally worth it now.
Yeah, he likes you now because he now sees that you can do things for him.
Yeah, it was kind of like this mutual attachment where it's just like, oh, you're not that bad.
Did it change much, like becoming a father and training camp and preparing for fights?
It wasn't drastic to the point like, and I heard some people say this too, just like, oh, once I had my baby, it was like this new level of motivation. For me, I was equally as motivated. I mean, before he got here, I was motivated to be the best. Once he got here, I was motivated to be the best. It just kind of, it definitely does kind of make it more worth it. Like when you leave home, knowing that you're coming home with something that you accomplished for your family, not just yourself anymore. So that part does feel good. But overall, as far as like the motivation factor or like going.
Wait, it kind of can. No, I can't hear you now. Oh, fuck. I feel like I heard. Okay, no, there we go. Oh, I said bad words twice. There we go. I can hear you. So the last part I heard was that like it hasn't really changed your motivation. Like it was just coming home feels nicer, feels more.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, yeah, like some father would say like, oh, I'm so motivated once my son got here. And like at first when I heard that, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I want to have that feeling. But after having my son, like I don't feel that at all. I'm just like, man, I'm still just as motivated as I was before he got here. I don't feel like this extra motivation or this extra like drive or anything like that. But it does feel good at the end of the day, knowing that like my sacrifices aren't just for myself anymore. There's actually someone else who benefits from everything that I do in life, not like whether it's fighting or real estate or whether else it may be. Someone's actually benefiting from that in the long run.
And you said or real estate. Are you trying to get into real estate?
Oh yeah, I'm like a real estate mogul now.
Yeah.
No, I mean it's kind of cool. It's one of those things that I just kind of been branching off a lot more into whatever, and I'm really developing a passion for it and a love for it now. So to be able to go out there, earn a living fighting, and reinvest in real estate and kind of have something that I can pass on to my son now, actually feels pretty
Yeah.
cool.
So how did you get into real estate? Because like I know James Krause is. I think Ala Quinta is also into real estate, and they speak very highly of it. So how'd you get into it? Is it like by hearing these guys?
So for me, it was just kind of I got into it from the construction side of it. Like I kind of I'm one of those guys that I'm just super ADHD. I have to be doing something all the time, otherwise I get bored too easy. So at first, I started get into like the construction side of real estate, just kind of working on my own properties and that kind of thing. And then I branched out to the point I realized that there's a huge market for it, like being able to build a real estate portfolio and then like set up your future and that kind of thing outside of fighting. And I just kind of ran with it. And the older I get, the more I realize that I can't fight forever. So being able to do something that's going to create passive income that's going to last much longer than my fighting career just became a no-brainer for me. I was just like, all right, I got to do something that's going to provide for my family long after the fight's over with and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Were you like nervous about it at all, like during your career? Because you fought a whole bunch of times. That's like an understatement of how much you fought, right? So during the fighting, was anything to do like financially, or did you just love fighting and this is like your life? But yeah, basically, was there any relation?
There definitely is a relation. I mean, there's been 2 instances in my career where I was forced to be sidelined for things that are outside my control. One time was an injury. An injury put me out for 9 months where I wasn't able to go out there and compete, wasn't able to go out there and earn a living through fighting. And the other one put me out for 16 months. That was outside of my control, and that was a USADA situation. After both those instances, I just didn't like that feeling of uncertainty. I didn't like that feeling that any injury or any situation can kind of stop your stream of income for a long period of time. And I felt uneasy about that. So it definitely motivated me to kind of reinvest my earnings and put my eggs into something that's going to provide for my family long after fighting is gone, and not put in a position where I'm like worried about where my next paycheck's going to come from or how I'm going to provide for my family when I'm not able to fight anymore. So that part was a motivator for me to actually expand more into real estate and take a little bit more risk, especially now that I'm still able to fight and make that my main source of income.
Does that make you like want to fight less? Are you like, well, I don't have to fight that much now, or you're just like,
not at all. It's the exact opposite. It actually makes me want to fight even more. I mean, at this point, it's just like going out there and like trying to smash every goal that I can in my MMA career, because you realize that it's something that's not permanent, and at any given moment it could be taken away from you. So having that be the position I find myself in, it makes me want to go even harder with fighting. It makes me want to go out there and get every title I can, every record I can, earn everything, every dollar, every penny I can from fighting. It makes me want to go out there and earn it even quicker. So if anything, this real estate venture has motivated me more to accomplish my goals in a cage, because I know there's a short window on that.
Well, real quick on the, so for your 16-month suspension that you had, you came out and you're like, dude, I didn't do anything. You know, this is like outside of me. I didn't do anything. And then you had so many fighters and people back you up. Like, you know what? I don't care what they say. I completely believe that, like, you know, he's telling the truth. Like that just says so much about your character, not only like for yourself, but like how people see you. What was that feeling like to just have so many people like back you up?
Wow, I mean, honestly, like that was one of the biggest reliefs when I was going through that whole USADA situation, because for me, it was something that I never thought I'd find myself in. I was just like, I didn't use anything that wasn't third-party tested. I used the same supplements year after year. So I never thought I would have to deal with that at all. So when I found myself in that situation, it was devastating. I was just like, how the heck did I end up here? So to have the support from my peers, the support from the media, support from the fans, that definitely was an encouraging factor for me, and it actually helped me in my case where I was able to argue the facts and actually go in front of USADA and actually tell them like, hey man, like look at this thing again. Look at the look what you guys found. Use your science, use your research, and tell me what does that mean, and what does that mean to me as an athlete. So USADA was able to actually go through, look at the facts, and determine that it wasn't anything that I did intentionally. It wasn't anything that gave me any kind of advantage or anything like that, or my opponents. And it actually motivated them to look at their own policy and realize that it was something that wasn't fair to the fighters and other athletes that they regulate. It was like, hey, you know what? Like, we kind of have to change our policy to make it more fair for the fighters and make it more fair for the other athletes that we regulate. Where people are testing positive for these like picogram level things, one, there's no advantage to the athlete. Two, it's something that's outside of their control. Like that's not an error that the athlete made. That's an error that the supplement company made. And it's not fair to the athlete to be punished for what the supplement companies are doing or not doing. So USADA actually went through and looked at their policy and looked at how they can actually work with the fighters and help keeping their innocence or whatever. And that's what happened with me. They looked at my situation and were just like, all right, you know what? There's some work to be done here on our end. You're a pretty credible guy. We have no reason to believe that you try to deceive us anyway. We'll look at the facts. We'll evaluate the facts. We'll bring the experts in, and we'll make a decision afterwards. And the decision that they came up with was if a fighter tests below 100 picograms of a particular banned substance, then they can attribute that to contamination, not intentional use by the fighter. Of course, if there's a situation where fighters testing below a certain picogram level, but it's happening over and over and over, they have to do an investigation further.
Yeah.
But that initial idea of like, hey, you know what, we're gonna evaluate the facts before saying that you guys are guilty, and we're gonna do everything in our power to prove that you guys are innocent, rather than just trying to prove that you guys are guilty. And that ended up working not just in my favor, but in favor of every athlete in the UFC and every athlete that USADA regulates. Now, because of my case, they were able to update their policy, add this common sense clause where if it's below a certain picogram level, they'll just link it to contamination. They'll do further tests to check on that fighter, but they won't pull the fighter from a card. They won't suspend the fighter, and that fighter can still go out there and earn a living.
So all of this came from your case? Like your case is the one that sparked it all?
Yeah, I mean,
God.
it was kind of crazy because the unfortunate side is like once a fighter tests positive for anything, the biggest thing that happens is like everyone's like, oh, that guy's a cheater. I knew he was a cheater. Let's look at him.
Yeah.
Like that guy's a freak. There's no way he can accomplish what he did, what he did on his own. He had to have his other stuff mates. For me, it was kind of like a backhanded compliment, but it's also like credibility as well. Like when I tested positive, guys were just kind of like, really? Neil, look at him. That guy's not on anything. Look how skinny he is. So like it was kind of a backhanded compliment because like I was just like, wait, what do you mean I don't look intimidating? Or I don't look like I'm like a badass or whatever. Like what do you mean I don't look like I could be on anything? But the other side,
what you mean?
yeah, I like pumping on my chest. Like wait. Like I'm like I got muscles. Look at these muscles here. But it was cool in the sense that like it made USADA look at the facts, and it made them really like bring my character into question and really consider like, hey, is this something that this guy did on purpose? And for the other fighters who don't have the benefit of the doubt that I was given, how can we make this fair for them as well? And that's what ultimately led them to changing their policy, because even when I was going through the situation I have, there was other fighters who would like reach out to me, hey man, how's the case going for you? Is there anything new happen? Because they were being sidelined as well. They were on the bench because of a positive USADA fighting, but they were kind of afraid of the media and public projection of them. It's like, if I come out and say I'm not fighting because of this particular thing, how are people going to perceive me? So they kind of stayed quiet and was hoping that things would get resolved behind closed doors, so that they wouldn't have to face the crowd or music where it comes to like being accused of something that you didn't do. But for me, that wasn't the case. I knew I had nothing to lose, nothing to hide, nothing to risk. So I had no problem being 100% transparent and letting the fans and media know exactly where I was going with my situation, and exactly where we were with the entire process.
Yeah. So after that, after they changed the policies, did you go back to using the same supplements now that they have a different policy for it? Or were you like, nah, I'm not touching that?
No, I mean, it got to the point that like, I was so worried about like missing out on fighting and that kind of thing for something I didn't do, that I just like, I quit cold turkey, so to speak. I stopped taking all supplements across the board. And it wasn't until it started affecting me negatively that I was just like, hey, you know what? I got to do something better about this. Like, I noticed changes in my hair, in my joints, in my even my teeth, for example. Like there were points that like, because my body was getting so depleted of like nutrients and minerals and that kind of thing, that my teeth were getting to the point that they were deteriorating. Like there were certain points that like my teeth were just like cracking, because my
Mm-hmm.
body was pulling the nutrients and minerals from anywhere that it could. So I noticed a change in my skin, in my hair, in my, like I said, in my teeth and my nails and that kind of thing. And it wasn't until it started affecting me negatively that I was just like, you know what, I have to do something. I have to take some kind of supplements to make up for my body's is depleting, because this is not sustainable. There's no way I can train as hard as I do, fight as often as I do, and not take the proper supplements to help nourish my body and replenish my body. So now I just kind of make sure that every supplement that I use is third-party tested, and it's like, it's the point of paranoia. Like I don't, even if I buy a bottle of like fish oil, for example, I won't consume the entire bottle. I'll save like 3-4 pills at the bottom, just in case something were to show up on a test result. I can send in those last 3-4 pills to get tested, and see if that
That's
was
pretty
what the
smart.
contamination was. But like, there's like a certain level of paranoia that this thing has brought me to, where I just kind of
Yeah.
take every precaution that I can, and just kind of cover my butt on every angle I can as well.
Last night I had a dream that got put like to fight. Like I didn't know I was fighting, but it was like, yeah, you fight on Saturday. I was like, oh, okay. And then it was like USADA came in and they're like, these supplements are wrong. Like I'm having nightmares about wrong supplements. I
Yeah,
can't imagine the type of paranoia you like, because it's a long time off, especially for somebody who fights so much.
yeah,
And especially with everybody or like even USADA to change their own policies, like you still had 16 months off.
for
You still
sure.
had 60 months where for like you couldn't fight, you didn't get paid, you didn't like as magnificent as this is for MMA, like I feel like it's kind of not like a sacrifice that you made like for the good of MMA and for the good of the future that I really wish more people knew about. I didn't know about it. But still, man, it's like
Yeah, I mean, that's
you
the
still
downside.
suffered.
Yeah, like most people, like prior to this, like most people were put in a position where like if if anything came against them, they were more worried about the public perception than the actual facts of the situation. And because of that, there were a lot of people who were kind of getting backed in a corner and forced to take like these unjust suspensions that didn't necessarily mean they did anything wrong, or anything that was in their control even. So it's kind of cool in the sense that like I was able to like go first and be the sacrificial lamb to like change this thing, but it does suck
Yeah.
missing out on 16 months of my career.
So what did you do? Like, how did you keep your mind? Because you said, you have to be doing something all the time. Is this when you got into real estate?
Yeah, I mean, that 60 months definitely made me dive into real estate a lot more, and kind of put myself in a position like, all right, cool. How can I increase my passive income where even when I'm fighting, I'm still earning money through real estate. Even when I'm like sleeping, I'm still earning money through real estate. So it really kind of forced me to kind of dig into that a bit more, and kind of really kind of build my portfolio, so to speak, for real estate and that kind of stuff. And it was out of necessity at the time because, like I said, I
Yeah.
was on the bench for 16 months. At the time, my wife was pregnant. I was just like, oh wow, great! I have a baby on the way,
Oh.
and I don't have a job right
Oh
now.
no.
This is so
Oh no.
yeah. So
Oh,
it
she's
was
freaking out.
yeah. So I was able to combine my passion with necessity and kind of create this thing that's going to be around long after my fighting career is over.
Yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to talk to you about, other than fighting, is that you're an Army veteran, right?
Yeah.
I feel like this is not said enough. This is pretty amazing. And I just like just your experiences as being in the Army, how has that like how has that accompanied you through fighting and how did it come about? Like was it before fighting? Was it because I mean, obviously not during, you didn't have any time. So yeah, basically I just want to ask you about your Army life.
Yeah, so I was in the Army for 7 years. I joined the Army immediately out of high school. I literally graduated high school on a Saturday and shipped out to boot camp on a Tuesday. It was like this immediate thing. I was like, all right, you know what? This is what I want to do. I don't know how it's going to play out or where it's going to take me, but I know this is the route I want to go. So I kind of just made the decision, signed up, and just kind of immediately shipped out. But I was pretty fortunate because during my time in the Army, it kind of gave me this opportunity to realize, and it's something that people don't get to practice that often either. It's one of those things where I was able to learn to enjoy the process. Like in the Army, there's a lot of like hurry up and wait, so to speak. Like it's just you're giving your orders, you're told you're going to ship on this date, and then there's like this long period of time in between where you're just kind of like, what do I do now, or what do I do in the meantime? So it really helped me develop this mindset of being able to embrace the uncomfortableness of life, or embrace the uncertainties of life. And I kind of carried that through a lot of different things in my life, especially in fighting. I mean, even when I look at how I got to the UFC, I wasn't one of those guys who was able to fight on the regional circuit, win the regional title, get called up to the UFC. For me, it was literally trying, failing, and trying again. Because I got to the UFC through the Ultimate Fighter, but it took me 4 times trying out for the Ultimate Fighter before I finally got selected as one of the guys that were going to be able to fight for a spot in the house. The first time I tried out, I didn't have enough experience. The second time I tried out, they decided to cut the entire 170 cast and did 155 instead. The third time I tried out, it was the same thing where we're just like, yeah, dude, you just don't have enough experience. And then finally, the fourth time I tried out, it was just like, hey, you know what? This is my 4th time here. You guys told me I needed more experience. I went and fought everyone I could over the last 7 months, and I was able to get X amount of fights in that time. I was able to get this many grappling tournaments in. I was able to get this many exhibition bouts in for striking or kickboxing, whatever it may be. And I finally looked at Dana White and Joe Silva, like, what else do you guys need me to do? And at the time, they all looked at each other and were just like, that's it, you're in, we'll give you your shot. And I was like, what, really? like that's all it took. So yeah, I mean, that was my
that's all it took. It's like I fought everybody I could for 7 months, went to a million grappling competitions, and really that's all it took. That's a lot.
When they told me I need more experience, I wasn't even worried about the opponent. What I would do is I would go to Sherdog, and I would go to the upcoming events section, and I would upcoming events, and I would email every single promoter that had an event coming up. And at the time I was living in Illinois, so I was emailing promoters from Louisiana all the way out to Wisconsin, from New York all the way to California. So I was going coast to coast, from region to region, trying to fight anyone I could, everywhere I could, and just kind of reaching out to all the promoters that I could possibly reach out to. And then to take a step further, I was like, man, these promoters aren't getting back to me as soon as as quick as I would like to. So what I ended up doing was, the girl that I was dating at the time, I had her copy the emails that I sent out to the promoters, and we changed it to third person, where it's just like she was sending an email on my behalf, and she was getting more responses from these promoters, and in turn I was able to still get the fights that I needed. But I wasn't worried about the opponents. I wasn't worried about the location. I wasn't worried about experience. I just knew that Dana White told me I needed more experience, and that's what I was out to get. So I was ready and willing to fight anyone, any location, anywhere, anytime, in order to make that happen. I even fought at a weight class above a few times in order to get that experience that I needed to make it the Ultimate Fighter.
So did you ever, because so for me, I was in Europe at the time, and I just went I did basically the exact same thing. I went on Facebook, I made an email, copied, and I just pasted to if fight gets canceled and all of that. But with that, and with it being a short amount of time, obviously you're a lot more injury prone, and you can't really if you say you're going to step up. And did you get injured during that time? Because it's quite dangerous.
No, I mean, thank God I wasn't injured at all during that time. But it was one of those things that I literally put off my entire life in order to make this thing happen. I was walking around literally within 7-8 pounds of my fight weight, because I was like, well, if a fight presents itself on a week's notice, I didn't want to have to worry about cutting weight to be an issue where I had to say no to a fight. And in doing so, even though I was walking around with 177, 178, I was still putting myself in position to fight a weight class above as well. So it was just one of those things that was like, unless I was injured, I wasn't going to stop. I was just Dana White told me I needed more experience, and I was going to do whatever I could to get that experience. That way, that wouldn't be the excuse where I was turned down again when I tried out for the Ultimate Fighter for the 3rd, 4th, 5th time if I had to.
So did you get into MMA after your army career, or was it something that
Oh
you had
yeah,
practiced
so
before?
I kind of drifted off in there.
No,
So I
it's all
kind of
good. This is a great story.
so I started training MMA my senior year of high school. So my senior year of high
Oh,
school,
okay.
I was playing football. I was wrestling and I was running track. And our football coach at the time had got us a membership at this Rose gym to go in and kind of lift weights and do that kind of thing to stay active during the summer. And during that time, Miguel Torres was renting studio space out of the back of this gym. So I kind of looked over and saw these guys training jujitsu and kickboxing and that kind of thing. I was like, huh, that looks kind of fun. So I kind of went in there and just kind of stumbling around with their equipment, just kind of trying it out or whatever. And I was like, huh, this is actually kind of fun. I think I want to pursue this a bit and see if I can get better at it. So my first taste of MMA was my senior year of high school. But then shortly afterward, when I left for the Army, I
Hmm.
started training in Army combatives, which is hand-to-hand combat. And that gave me a little bit more jiu-jitsu experience and like it's kind of like it was more like at the time Army combative was just now starting to implement jiu-jitsu. It was more based off like a Krav
Hmm.
Maga type thing. It was about like fighting tooth and nail to save your life and that kind of thing. But by the time I got into it, they started to implement a little bit more jiu-jitsu because the guys like Tim Kennedy and others who have gone through the combatives program prior to and kind of help revamp the program and tell the Army what other martial arts they should be implementing into their program. So I was pretty fortunate because by the time I got to the Army, Jiu-Jitsu was a big part of the combatives program. So I was able to train Army combative / Jiu-Jitsu during my time in the Army. And then in about 2008 or so, when I got deployed, it was the same thing. I was overseas. It was kind of nothing to do once your shift was over or once you were done with duty. So what I ended up doing was
Hmm.
finding a guy from like the from wherever I could, a guy who trained Muay Thai, a guy who trained Jiu-Jitsu, a guy who trained Army combatives, whatever it may be. And we kind of would get together after duty and we'd train with each other. This guy would teach me
Oh,
Muay Thai.
wow.
This guy would teach me Jiu-Jitsu. And at the time, it was just kind of something I was doing to help pass the time or whatever. It was just like, yeah,
Hmm.
it was a rough day on shift. I need to blow off some steam. So I'd find these guys and we'll get together and just kind of train together to help ease the stress of deployment or whatever. And it kind of just it kind of pushed my love for martial arts further, my love for MMA a bit further. And then once that deployment was over with, I was in a position where I was like, all right, cool. My deployment's over with. It's time to make the choice about like what I do as far as college or um, uh, college wrestling or pursuing a
Yeah.
career in MMA. At the time, one of my senior um, instructors, so to speak, that was in the Army, kind of advised me that like I shouldn't pass up the opportunity to wrestle at a collegiate level because it's might be something I would get later on. So he encouraged
Hmm.
me to actually register for college and kind of pursue a wrestling career there, just because he didn't want it to be something that I would regret 15, 20 years down the road, saying that like, oh, I could have been a badass college wrestler, but I never took the opportunity to.
Yeah.
So I kind of took that advice from him. At the end of my deployment, I registered to go to school at Southern Illinois University, and I got back to the States. I immediately went down to Southern Illinois and started university down there. And within the first month and a half, 2 months of being there, Matt Hughes, Robert Lauer, Mark Fiore ended up opening up a gym called His Squad, which was probably 10 miles away from where I was going to school. So I was like, oh, dude, this is perfect. So I can actually train wrestling for the school and pursue this like collegiate wrestling career, and I can still train MMA at this new gym that just opened up 10 miles from my school. This is no brainer. This is where I should be. So my time in college, from like 2008, 2009 to about 2011, 2012, I was able to not only pursue wrestling, I was able to train martial arts as well, mixed martial arts, with guys like Robert Lawler, Matt Beach, Brian Foster, Matt Hughes, all these guys who were already in the UFC. And at the time, I was just like, man, like, and it wasn't easy by any means. Like the first year or two I was there, I was getting my ass kicked day in and day out by these guys. Like I remember getting frustrated to the point like I was in tears. Like I remember getting beat up by Robert Lawler one day and getting mad at the coaches. Like, why are you guys coaching him? I'm an amateur. I'm like 19, 20 years old, and you guys are coaching Robert Lawler against me. This is bullcrap. You guys should be coaching me. And I like storm off the mat all like pissed off and crying. And then like fast forward a year and a half, 2 years later, I started some of these guys go in the gym. I started giving Robert Lawler for his money in the gym. I started giving bosses some pretty good competitive goals in the gym. So at that point, I was just like, you know what? I can make a run for this. I can actually make a career out of mixed martial arts. Things like I thought beating Robert Lawler that I was gonna feel amazing. I thought I would feel like, yeah, dude, I just beat the guy who used to kick my butt 10 years ago. But when it actually happened, like I was actually disappointed. I was just like, that wasn't as like glorifying as I thought it would be. I was in my mind, it was like I was supposed to beat Robert Lawler. I was the guy, like, you know what I mean? I was the fighter who kind of looked out to him at one point and then trained my butt off for like the 10 years in between that time. So when we finally got placed in the cage with one another, I was supposed to be victorious. I was supposed to go out there and beat Robert Lawler. I was supposed to show the work that I put in over the years, and it was supposed to come out the way that it did. And at the end of the day too, Robert Lawler's a guy I have so much respect for. So it's not like there's any animosity towards the guy or anything like that. So beating him, it wasn't like this joyous occasion for me. It wasn't like this, yeah, like take that, dude. It was just it was more like I just did what I had to do, but I'm not excited about it. Like I just, you know what I mean? Like it was more of like a check off the box. It was one of those things that was just kind of like, yeah, dude, you're the younger fighter. You're the fighter who's kind of looking to be where he's been. You should go out there and beat him. You should go out there and like beat him in a fashion that's not even comparable. Like I shouldn't have leaps and bounds against the guy. So after that fight, it was like this, like, yeah, I just beat Robert Lawler, but it's not satisfying. That's not the end goal for me. Like, you know what I mean? Like I want to accomplish the things that Robert Lawler has accomplished in his career. I want to be a world champion. I want to be one of the baddest men on the planet when it comes to the talks of some of the best welterweights in the world. So even though I got the win over Robert Lawler many years later, it wasn't like, it wasn't a nail in the coffin for me. It wasn't like, all right, that's done. That chapter's closed. Let me move forward now. It's just kind of like, yeah, you did it. Good job. But the work's not done yet. Get back out there and do it again. Yeah. And that's kind of where I'm at now, man. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's keep this ball rolling right now. Let's keep this momentum going. Let's go ahead and make that title run in 2021. Let's go ahead and smash these goals out of the park.
Yeah. I mean, you completely ruined like the emotional bully and like nerd story for me. you both did, because everyone knows he's like a great guy too. So I'm just kind of like, I'll just make him a villain in my head for a little bit.
Yeah, right.
For me to enjoy myself.
Yeah.
So okay, so you were supposed to fight Jeff Neal, right? Before Robbie stepped in. So Jeff Neal is ranked under you, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna get to a point here. And then after beating Robbie Lawler, which is a giant accomplishment, comes out, right? And then you call him out, right? You call him out. You're like, oh, nobody wants to fight him. Yeah, I'll fight him. To the point where even like Dana White talks about it. You know, it's become like this big thing. People on social media are like, hey, don't say everyone's dodging you. If Theo Magny is like, I got it, I got you. You know. So then he gets a fight booked with Leon Edwards, which is ranked number 3. And then you're like, okay, well, give me one of these two guys. Like Stephen Thompson's a good one. And then the guy you were supposed to fight gets the fight with Stephen Thompson. So
yeah.
You know what? I just want you to rant right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like, yeah, how do I start this? So I was in a position where, like, after the Robbie Lawler fight, like I said, I wasn't satisfied. I knew beating Robbie Lawler wasn't going to be like the highlight of my career. I knew there was more work to be done. So I was looking forward to getting back out there as soon as possible against a guy who was ranked a lot higher than Robbie Lawler was, a guy who's on a win streak, maybe like Jeff Neal, and someone who was going to help keep propelling my career forward. And that didn't happen. It got to the point that like some of the guys who were ranked above me, like if I run it back from number one all the way back, I mean, you have at the time you had uh, Masvidal, who's getting ready to fight for the title. You had Gunnar. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. You had Gilbert Burns, who was just excuse me,
Hmm.
tested positive for coronavirus, so he was pulled from a title shot. You had Tyron Woodley, who was scheduled to fight Covington. You had Wonder Boy, who's kind of waiting for the best opportunity. You had Leon Edwards, who's kind of in limbo as far as being able to fight during the pandemic and not being a fight during the pandemic. You had Chiesa,
Yeah.
who was MIA, whether he was injured or whatever else may be. He wasn't there. Then you had myself. You had Luke, another guy who's injured or
Hmm.
wherever it may be. Then you had Jeff Neal, who had just got out of the ICU and was in a position like, well, will he be ready to fight before the year's over with? Or what's his case as far, what's his deal as far as recovery goes? When is he going to be ready for competition again? And then you had, I think that was the entire top division, but then he had all these guys. So in my case, like I didn't care whom I was going to fight. I just wanted to be a ranked opponent that was going to continue to move my career forward because after the Robert Lawler fight, the crap that I received was just like, oh, well, Robert Lawler's past his prime. He should retire. He should do this. He should do that. So in my mind, I was just like, well, you know what? Give me Jeff Neal. Give me a guy who's undefeated at welterweight. Give me a guy who's on a 5-fight win streak in UFC. Give me a guy who's surging right now, who's on the way up, and let me fight that guy. Let me test myself against him because I just beat the crap out of Robert Lawler, and you guys are telling me that he's old, retired, fighting past his prime. So give me the next guy. But Jeff Neal kind of had this like question mark over his head where it's just like maybe he's ready to fight for years over, maybe he's not. But I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to sit around for 6 months for him to get healthy and then try to fight him. So I was like, if Jeff
Yeah.
Neal's not ready, then give me Wonder Boy and give me so and so. Give me any one of these guys who are ready to fight before the year's over with. And all of them were holding out for a higher ranked opponent. So because the guys that are ranked number 6 on up were waiting for high ranked opponents, and the guys who are ranked 10 through 15 were kind of either injured or MIA, I was just like, well, what do? I don't want to wait 6 months for my next fight. Give me somebody. Here comes Kamzat. Kamzat's this guy who everyone's jumping on as being the next best thing. Everyone's saying this guy's going to be a world champion. This guy's going to be the next greatest thing for UFC. And I'm like, well, I can't get a ranked opponent because of injury and entitlement or whatever else may be. So I'll take the next best thing. Give me the surging newcomer. Give me this undefeated fighter who has a lot of hype behind him, a lot of people who are afraid of this guy. Give me that guy. That'll be the next biggest challenge for me. Like this guy is feared by a lot of people, avoided by a lot of people. So give me that guy. Let me go out there and prove that I'm one of the best in welterweights by taking out this guy who's a younger, eager fighter that's undefeated. And I for sure thought that fight was going to happen. And then it didn't happen. It ended up falling through, and he ended up getting a higher ranked opponent by a guy who turned fights down against me because he said I wasn't ranked high enough. And Leon Edwards, I'm just sitting there scratching my head like, wait, what? Like number 8 is not high enough for you to fight, but you're willing to fight a guy who's unranked. Okay, whatever. Best luck to you. I hope you get that fight. I hope it gets you what you want out of your career. And then you have a guy like Stephen Thompson who said he needs to fight a ranked opponent, and he was eager to fight a guy like Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards is booked now, so Stephen Thompson doesn't have an opponent. And instead of fighting number 8 guy, he chooses to fight number 13 guy. And now I'm sitting there scratching my head again, like, wait. Am I missing something here?
But did they contact you about that fight?
No, not at all. That fight never even was offered to me. And I'm sitting there scratching my head yet again. I'm just like, wait, you didn't want to fight a guy who wasn't ranked in the top 5, but here you are fighting a guy who's ranked 13 instead of a guy who's ranked number 8. And I'm sitting there scratching my head with that situation, like, that doesn't make any sense, but hey, I wish you the best in that fight as well. Hopefully it gets you closer to your goal, whatever it may be. And here I am at the end of the year, just kind of like hoping that someone like Chiesa is willing to step up and take a fight against me at this point. Because for me, like sitting on the shelf healthy at this point in my career is the biggest detriment to me. Like I don't move up in the rankings. I don't fight for a title anytime soon if I'm not out there fighting. I look at my career at this point, like a guy like Masvidal. Masvidal, before fighting Darren Till a couple of years ago. He was on a 2-fight losing streak, and a lot of people were counting him out. He believed in
Mhm.
himself. He went out there and knocked out Darren Till. And everyone's like, oh my God, Masvidal is back. This guy's amazing. And then he takes it a step further and he beats Brian Edwards the same night backstage. And everyone's like, oh my God, this guy just won 2 fights in one night. It has been done in UFC since the 90s. He's the next best thing. This guy's amazing.
Yeah.
And then you fast forward a couple months later and he gets to fight against Ben Askren and he smokes the guy in 5 seconds. And now Masvidal went from being a guy in a 2-fight losing streak who everyone was counting out to being one of the most marketable fighters in all of combat sports based on what he did off those 2 fights. For me, I'm chasing that moment. I'm chasing that moment throughout my career. It could be a fight against Chiesa. It could be a fight against so-and-so. But if I go out there and have that performance that's going to get people talking for years to come, that's the kind of fight that propels my career. That's the kind of fight that opens up many doors for me. And that those doors don't open sitting on the shelf. And that's not what I want to do for my career. Like, give me someone to fight. Let me go out there, entertain the fans, and show them why I should be fighting for a title. And let me earn my spot that way. But to sit on the sideline feeling entitled, that doesn't do anything for me. And I don't feel like that propels me any closer to meeting my goals.
So, obviously, with the rankings being a giant mess, right? And I'm pretty sure you heard about Leon Edwards. Like, they took him out of the rankings, like completely. Like, okay, you don't want to fight? Cool. You want a solid division? Cool. Which is kind of like what you feel is going on now. Like, I can't move up, which is what I want to do. So give me a fight, and then it's not. Like, you tell me no because of rankings, and then you're doing the complete opposite of what you're saying. So is it the rankings or is it me? Which you can obviously guess what I think it is. So,
yeah.
So what would you do to change it? Like, if you can make a rule, right, or like some guidelines to how rankings should be, how would you change it so that won't be a problem anymore?
So it has to be like guys who are sitting out inactive, who are sitting in like that top 5, top 7, top 10 even. If you're sitting
Mm-hmm.
inactive because you're turning down fights and waiting for the best opportunity, then I feel like you should fall back in the rankings as time goes on. If you're out because of an injury or something like that, then sure, you can keep your spot. But if you're being offered fights and you're saying no because you're holding out for the best opportunity in your mind, then I don't think that's fair for the entire division because especially when it comes down to things like how the rankings are even made up. I mean, I can remember a point where who was it? Cowboy was supposed to fight drawing blank on his name. It's right here in the wall. I should know. Kelvin Gastelum. Cowboy was supposed to fight Kelvin Gastelum. At the time, Kelvin Gastelum was ranked number 5. Cowboy was ranked number 10 or something like that. The fight fell through the day before because Kelvin Gastelum had to get hospitalized after the weight cut or something like that. So the fight fell through. But the following week, even though the fight didn't take place, somehow miraculously, Cowboy went from being ranked number 10 to being ranked number 5, and Kelvin Gastelum dropped off the rankings significantly. I was just scratching my head like, wait, how do you move up in the rankings by being scheduled to fight a top 5 guy but not actually fighting the top 5 guy? Like, how that even a decision made or whatever, and where's the justification in that? So that kind of like made me question the credibility of the rankings early on. But then you take it a step further and you see some of these guys who are sitting in the top 5 position for years based off of what they did 3 years ago. And it's like, dude, it's not fair to the rest of the guys. Like, this is a competitive sport. You're only as good as your last fight in a lot of people's eyes. And you sitting in that position is literally taking an opportunity away from other fighters. Like, if you're eager to, if you're willing to sit out a year and wait for a perfect matchup, by all means do so. You're entitled to do that, but don't keep another fighter's career from progressing by doing so. So I feel like if you're not actively defending your spot, so to speak, for being ranked at top 5 position, with the exception of injury, then you should be falling back a bit.
So how long would you say, like, you can't stay in the position? Like, would you give like 6 months? Would you give it a year that you had to fight?
Yeah, I mean, 6 months to a year of a guy not fighting. I mean, like, if I look at the guys in the top 5 right now, even with the 16-month layoff, I fought 3 times since their last fight. And I am sitting there like as a fighter, like what else do I need to do in order to advance my career? I mean, fighting and winning isn't enough because these guys are sitting in these positions. So what else do I need to
Yeah.
do? And I think turning the heat up under these guys' butt by having a 6 month to a year window where it's like, hey, you have to either defend your spot or it's gonna be taken away from you, would like motivate these guys to go out there and one, actually fight, two, fight light harder to keep their spot.
You did something completely different to what you're used to, right? Which is you called somebody out. You like brought it on the media, you talked about it, you did all this, and you get somebody else, and the guy you're supposed to fight gets somebody else. So, and then you're like, okay, so winning fights isn't doing it for me because I'm winning fights and I'm still not getting like sort of like the recognition you deserve. I think like that's fair to say, right? Like the recognition you deserve. You have the second most amount of wins in the welterweight division. One in two people who fought 5 times in a year, like 2 years straight. So are you going to change the way you approach? Like, how do you plan on getting these fights now that that's how the rankings are? Like, the perfect world scenario, you can change it, but right now you can't. So, did that kind of like take off all your motivation, or you're like, no, like I'm still going to continue this path?
No, I mean it definitely added. Like I'm one of those guys who, if someone gives me some feedback, whether it's negative or positive, I'll find the good in it and I'll take it and stride with it. So if I look at myself and look at where I'm trying to go in my career, I'll take the good and the bad. So if I'm going out there and I'm winning fights and it's not getting me the fights that I win, that I want, then one or two things. Maybe I need to go out there and like literally put a beating on these guys where I can't be denied, or just start putting these guys away. If I increase my finish rate in the UFC, I can't be denied. So for
Yeah.
me, that's kind of the motivation. Like not just go out there and beat these guys, but beat them even more impressively. Make it look like they don't belong in the cage with you. And that's my motivation for my next fight moving forward. Like I'm not just gonna go in there and just win the fight, but I'm gonna go in there and put a beat on this guy to the point that it's gonna make the guys who are already afraid me look at me like, oh wow, I really want to fight Neil now. And for the fans, like, oh
Yeah.
my God, you see the beating Neil put on so and so. I want to see Neil Magny fight this guy next. And that's the kind of reaction that I want to lead the fans with after my next fight. I want to go out there and just put on such a great performance that the fans start demanding who they want to see me fight next, as opposed to leaving up to chance or probability or wherever else it may be in order for me to get the fights that I want. I need to go out there and literally earn my spot by just putting on impressive fights, getting these finishes, and giving the fans and media something that they want to see over and over and over again. So that's where the motivation is for me at this point. It's just to go out there and like literally finish these fights and put a beating on these guys to the point that I can't be denied.
So, are you going to like pull back from the calling out of fighters, or are you just going to do that too?
Oh, I'm gonna do it all. I'm gonna go out there and call out every single fighter that I want, and I'm gonna go out there and literally, and that's one of the things that I don't know if I haven't called out fighters in the past because I was worried about like, oh man, maybe what if I can't measure up to it or whatever else may be. But at this point,
Yeah.
I have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Whether I call you out or not, I may get passed up. So I might as well go out there, beat some ass, and call out the next guy. So it's just it's not I'm not necessarily bitter about it, but it's definitely motivating for me. It's about going out there and taking what I want. So go out there, finish the fights, and immediately call out who I want next. Don't leave it up to the matchmaker to choose for me, but go out there and demand it with not just my words, but with my actions.
Yeah. Hopefully you get a fight soon, man. Like,
Oh my God, who are you telling?
maybe Kiesa. For real. You look like you're like struggling to like.
Yeah, but that's the
Okay,
thing. You have
this
to.
is
Sorry,
no,
good.
no. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say that's the other thing you have to accept for this time of or this era of fighting as well. I mean, with the whole COVID situation and everything else like that, fight cards have the tendency of changing at any given moment. So the fact that I'm
Yeah.
not satisfied, the fact that I'm not content with the work that I've done this year so far, I can't let off the gas pedal, so to speak, at this point. There are
Mhm.
4 fighters in my weight class that are scared to fight before the year's over with. I'm not saying that I wish anything would happen to these guys, but it's just the nature of the sport that injuries happen. And right
It's
now with
likely.
COVID,
Yeah.
positive tests happen. So the likelihood of me having to step in and replace one of these guys is pretty high. So for me,
Hmm.
it's just going out, is just kind of staying motivated and putting the work in, where if the opportunity does present itself for the year's over with, I'm able to jump in the cage and say yes without any doubts or holdback at all. I can say with confidence that I can replace these guys on a day's notice, a week's notice, a month's notice, whatever it may be.
Has that changed your training at all since you're like, be, exactly, because COVID tests, everything. Like, I think that the main event just got called off, Makachev with RDA. So with all these cancellations, like more than usual, because training camp is already hard enough as it is. With all these cancellations, like, has it made like a giant change in your training now? Because you're just kind of waiting and hoping,
Um,
not hoping, but sort of hoping.
it's kind of crazy because like it things kind of worked out the way it was supposed to for me, so to speak. Like I literally am just now getting over having COVID myself. So that being the
Oh
case,
shit.
yeah. So that being the case, I know in my mind I don't have to worry about getting COVID again. So the likelihood of me getting pulled from a fight later this year because of COVID is pretty much gone for me. Like there's probably been like one person out of like over 1 million cases who's contracted the virus twice within a few months of each other. So the likelihood of me getting
Hmm.
COVID again at this point is pretty much non-existent or super low. So that's not something I have to worry about anymore at all. I mean, I was able to take 2 weeks off from like going to the gym and physically train with other people. And that those 2 weeks off actually gave me a lot of time to rest, recover, and heal certain injuries that were kind of nagging me anyway. So now I'm in a position to like get back in the gym, rejuvenated and remotivated with the idea that I could be fighting again for years over with. So I don't feel like it's gonna change how I train. If anything, is gonna add more fuel
Hmm.
to the fire and let me know that, hey man, there's an opportunity out there that you could be given. Let's not make you not preparing properly, or let's not make you stacking up on your diet be the reason why you can't take advantage of that opportunity. So I feel like I'm in a great place physically and emotionally right now to actually fight one more time for the years over with, just based off of the era that we're in and the things that's been happening in the sport.
How did, well, obviously, like, it's very like noticeable, like the symptoms of coronavirus, right? Like everybody like knows about it and it's completely horrible. But do you feel like it was different because you're such like, because you're an athlete, basically? So
Yeah, I
do
mean
you
that's
feel
one of
like
the things.
you didn't get them as hard, or
No, I mean I have nothing to compare it to. Like the good thing is like being an athlete, I do know my body pretty well, so I can tell when the smallest thing is off. So early
Mhm.
on, when I was like, man, something doesn't feel right, I was able to kind of pull myself back from training and kind of not be around the other guys. So when I first started noticing that I needed to, and initially I thought I just needed the rest. I was starting noticing the fatigue. So I kind of just pulled away from the other guys and it's like, hey, you know what? I'm not feeling too good right now. I'm going to take some time off training and just kind of let my body recover a bit. And during that time, I had a family friend who tested positive. So I was just like, oh, you know what? I did see this guy this week. Like, let me just go in and get tested just to kind of make sure. So at the time, I went in and got tested, and my test results came back negative. So even though they came back negative, I was like, you know what? The test results are negative. I'm just going to take some time and not immediately jump back into training, just because I know I don't feel right, and
Yeah.
I may be overtrained or whatever else it may be. So I pulled back from training, and I wasn't going to the gym. And then my wife started feeling sick, so she ended up having to go in and get tested for COVID, and her results came back positive. So between her getting the
Oh my
positive
God.
test and eventually me getting a positive test, I was able to like to really kind of dodge a bullet, so to speak, like because I noticed something was off my body, because I was feeling that early fatigue, whatever else may be. I was able to pull myself away from my teammates and I get them infected, and kind of
Yeah.
address the issue early on. But going on day 15 now. I feel like that was the best thing that could have happened to me. It gave me an opportunity to rest, recover, and kind of deal with these nagging injuries because after that Robbie Lawler fight, like I said, I wasn't satisfied. I wasn't content with what I've accomplished. So I literally fought Robbie Lawler on a Saturday. I was back in the gym on Monday, asking my coaches like, hey, what do I need to work on? Where do we go from here? Because I was so eager to like move forward and keep progressing my career. So to have the Robert Lawler training camp go through, to have the Jeff Neal training camp and then switch up for Robert Lawler and then immediately jump back in the gym on that Monday, I was pretty much due for some rest and recovery. So I feel like it worked out perfectly as far as forcing me to be sidelined, rest, recover, and now I'm able to go back to the gym fully replenished, rejuvenated, and able to keep moving forward.
Yeah, without the worry that if you do get the opportunity to fight, you know, like you don't have to worry about Corona anymore.
I don't have to worry about COVID.
So like, I feel like your life has a lot of like bad, good things that you just need like the right mentality, and it's great.
For sure.
How did you guys do
it's like embracing that
with your son?
Fortunately, he didn't have it too bad. I mean, I don't know if because he's breastfed or what, and the breast milk had the antibodies in it that kind of kept him healthy. But with him, it wasn't too bad. I think he had like 1 or 2 days of having a fever. But other than that, he's been great. So that was another blessing, I guess. I mean, I was able to get sick. My wife was able to get sick. My son was able to avoid it 100% and stay healthy. So
let's say he didn't get it.
No, he didn't. I mean, he might have had it, but his symptoms weren't that bad at all. I mean, with the exception of having a fever for about 2 days or so, he didn't really have any other symptoms or didn't really seem too down or bad or anything like that. So we've been pretty fortunate that if he did get it, the symptoms were minimal and it didn't affect him at all.
That's good. I'd be so scared. Just because I'm like a klutz anyway, just any additional thing. Oh my God, I'd be terrified.
Yeah, right.
Okay, this is the last question, and I'll let you go because I know I've kept you for long. Sparked curiosity. So during the Army, they had their own training. Do you feel like you learned anything different to what you would learn from regular MMA class that is beneficial for an MMA fight?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, up until I fought Santiago Ponzinibbio, I've never even bled in an MMA fight before. And that was from how I believe that's from how my training went. I mean, like starting out with a little bit of jiu-jitsu and then jumping into Army combatives. For us, it was like this life or death fight. So I never trained in a position where it was just like I was taking damage and giving damage, or taking damage and giving damage. I trained early on to be able to control the fight. Like I'm able to get in there and kind of control my opponent or enemy, or whomever it may be, control them and kind of control the situation and then walk away with it and still be able to go home to my family at the end of the day. And when it comes to my MMA fights early on, I feel like that's how most of them played out. I mean, to have 20 plus fights in UFC and only bled in one of them, I feel like I do a pretty good job of keeping myself safe when I'm in there, and then getting the job done as far as being able to beat my opponents with taking minimum damage in return.
That's great. I'm glad like you got something positive about it. And like it's something like you don't really think about with like other martial arts, especially like self-defense martial arts. It's like they're fighting against somebody that might stab them, you know? If you have like that mentality when you fight, I feel like a lot of knockouts might come from the fact that you want to put on a big show. So you risk when you really shouldn't, and when that's like in the back of your mind, like I'm not gonna risk because this is like, you know, this is my life. It's just different, and you just fight different, and I just think you fight smarter.
Yeah, I mean, definitely helps you fight smarter. But then, like, as I've been doing it more, you start enjoying yourself in the chaos, so to speak. I mean, there's fights where I'm like sticking my tongue out of my opponent, smiling at my opponent, laughing at my opponent, like while we're in there fighting. So that just lets you know how comfortable I am in there. And I think that actually does come from my combat experience and Army experience. I mean, I get to go in there and compete in mixed martial arts. When I was training for hand-to-hand combat and in the military, like I didn't get to choose when the fight was going to come to me. And when the fight came to me,
Yeah.
it was literally life or death. So when I get the opportunity to go in there and engage in a fight, I kind of thrive in that moment. There's no anxiety for me in that situation. There's no fear for me in that situation. I realize that at any point I don't have to go out there and do this. I can just say like, hey, you know what? That's it. My fighting career is over. I'm gonna focus full time on real estate. I'm out. But coming from a background where the fight was being brought to you and you didn't have that choice of
Mhm.
like tapping out or quitting when you wanted to, it kind of breeds a different mentality for you to go out there and compete in such a brutal sport for fun.
Yeah. Well, I hope that's not the case. I hope that's not the case where you just walk out and go to real estate. Like, not that I wouldn't like that for, for the future, but like I really hope you get like ranked opponent, and I hope that you're the champ by the end of next year,
Oh, for sure. I'm gonna do everything
latest.
in my
I
power
mean, like, you
to make
fought
that happen.
enough to not like you have fought enough to prove yourself.
For sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on and joining me. Like, I hope you say hi to Emily for me, and
Oh,
hopefully
for
I get
sure.
to meet Liam soon.
You know what's crazy about every time I talk to you? Like, it's just like knowing your background and like how much like time you spent all over the world. It's always interesting to see like what accent you're gonna have when we speak.
My sister's like, "Why do you sound British now?"
Well, it's just like because like literally you've been like lived all over the world and like with your Hispanic background, I'm always like, oh, she's gonna have like that little like Latina twang when she speaks or whatever. But then it's like,
You're making me
oh,
red.
she kind of sounds British right now. Like there's always curious in the back of my mind. It's like, oh, I wonder what accent she's gonna have when she speaks.
I'm now saying trolley and stuff, so watch out. I'm totally pulling. Who was it? Wasn't it like Madonna who started to talk British after
Yeah,
being here for a bit? Yeah, I'm pulling off of Madonna. I'm
yeah.
British now. Well, I don't think it'll change much for the future. The worst part, I swear to God, is in Spanish. Cause like I'll speak normal, but the thing is, like, Spanish, you have like 30,000 different accents and like
For
slangs.
sure.
And then like when I speak to my dad, I don't know, I feel like relaxed and I feel normal because even though like I'm Spanish, I was raised in America, so all the school was in English, and speaking to my dad, like I'll speak to him in Spanish. So I'm like,
Yeah.
if I'm ever getting interviewed or stuff in Spanish, I'm just like, oh, my
Yeah.
accent,
It's super
it's
tense.
gonna be bad. They're gonna tell me that it's bad, and then I get like worse, and I have a completely different accent, like completely. It doesn't even sound like at me at all. And then that's why I can never hear myself back, because I'm like, oh no, I sound
Yeah.
like an idiot.
It's subconscious about it.
Well, next time maybe I'll have a little bit more British, because I do get made fun of for how I speak sometimes. But if not, it should be consistent.
For sure.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on and speaking to
Oh,
me.
no problem. It was great talking to you. Hope you have a good one.
You too. You
All
too.
right.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Speak soon.